Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the Eurovision Song Contest. But before we do that, I need to give you a little bit of history. Eurovision is a telecommunications network for broadcasts across Europe. It has many functions with local radio and television within the European Union, but it's also used and was designed to be used when programs were to be broadcast simultaneously across Europe. Now, that doesn't happen very often because each country has its own news agencies and they usually have a presence in other countries. So the Eurovision telecommunications network used to broadcast programs simultaneously across Europe, that really doesn't happen very often, but it does have other functions as well. It's operated by the European Broadcasting Union. So, about the Eurovision Song Contest, it uses the Eurovision Telecommunications Network to broadcast. It's a song contest which takes place once a year. Every country nominates a song which it thinks could win the Eurovision Song Contest. Its origins are very old. It comes from the 1950s, a time when perhaps there was still a sense of nationalism with each country, because these were the days before the European Union actually came into some kind of existence. Each country nominates its act. The voting takes place through dialing a certain number or voting online, and the final contest takes place usually in the first or second week of May. There have been some very famous acts in the Eurovision Song Contest, such as ABBA, who won many years ago with their song, I think it was called Waterloo, a very famous song throughout the world. And there's been many other very famous people who have participated. Since its beginning in the 1950s, it's gone through some major changes because of technology. Eurovision remains possibly the only programme now which is broadcast throughout Europe. I think the nomination of one of the European presidents also used Eurovision back in 2014 or 2015, I don't recall. Sometimes sports matches are broadcast simultaneously throughout Europe as well, but it's kind of uncommon. So, about the final of the Eurovision Song Contest, remember that each country votes for its own acts, and then there is a final which takes place. It doesn't look anything like America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent, although the idea is kind of the same. They're all very professional people, and everyone across Europe is encouraged to dial a telephone number or go online for their favourite act. There are, however, a few little difficulties with this. Firstly, one of the major problems of Eurovision is, of course, politics. Let me explain. So the European Broadcasting Union was there long before the European Union was, so therefore it operates with very different standards as who can participate. So most countries in Europe participate, although during times of uprisings, military operations and wars, some countries may not be allowed. Also, if any country breaks any rules associated with Eurovision, and there's quite a few, then it also could be banned from the contest. There's also certain standards that these musicians have to meet, and if they don't behave properly, they could be kicked out. Aside from this, there are certain other political elements to Eurovision, such as the voting. For example, after Brexit, Britain became last in Eurovision, and to be honest with you, it's never really very popular because no one really likes Britain. We are a little island which is kind of far away from the rest of Europe. And then there's tactical voting. Ireland votes for Britain, Britain votes for Ireland. Spain votes for Portugal, Portugal votes for Spain. And the countries which neighbour each other, they tend to all vote for each other. But as a general rule, Britain usually comes very far down the list. So this year's Eurovision Song Contest was won by Ukraine. It's been heavily tipped that it would win, and Britain actually came second, which was really surprising. That's the highest Britain has managed to get on the scoreboard for many, many years. Perhaps the strangest thing about Eurovision is the very strange way different countries portray their different fashions and different ideas regarding music. Often the songs are not in English, and sometimes they wear traditional costumes. There's quite often protests at Eurovision, and these may, for example, be protests against certain government policies in particular countries by singing about them, or they could just be general ways of living in certain countries which are being commented on. Eurovision is something which is fun, and in many European countries, Eurovision is a reason to have a party, or a street party, or a time just to be with friends, to sit down and watch it on television. And also some pubs and bars will also show Eurovision. Britain does not really appreciate Eurovision so much. They show it on national TV, but people are often ashamed to say that they watch it. And besides, Eurovision has changed a lot. Certain acts over the years have changed the direction of Eurovision. So these days it is something less cultural and more a way to explore different themes of music. Often there are some very strange entries which don't really mean anything, but are just funny. For example, this year Norway had an entry entitled "Don't Give the Wolf a Banana," or maybe it was called "Give the Wolf a Banana," I don't remember. But as you can hear from the words, it's just a little bit strange. And of course it had people dancing, wearing yellow, with face masks which resembled wolves. So you see, each country has its own little thing regarding Eurovision. Britain's entry this year sounded like a pop ballad. Some very famous people have came from Eurovision. I think Celine Dion, for example, has been in Eurovision twice. Once representing France and another time representing, I think it was Switzerland. I'm no expert on Eurovision. But people from different countries can represent other countries. Alexander Rybak had a lovely song called Fairy Tale. He represented Norway around 10 years ago, and that's one of my favourite Eurovision entries. It was a winner. But he was born in Belarus, and I think he had been living in Norway. So you see, anyone can participate for any other country, which adds to the lovely diversity which Eurovision gives us. Eurovision, some people would say, is a little bit kitsch. Kitsch. Kitsch is a German word which denotes a certain kind of fashion. And it is used in English to talk about something which is old, which has been perhaps renovated to serve a particular purpose. That's very different, but associated with bad taste, which is something old which hasn't been renovated, but is still used in its original form. Eurovision these days has a lot of, a lot of fans from different countries. It also has a lot of money invested in it. The winning country has the honour of hosting Eurovision in the following year. This year, Eurovision was in Italy, and it was in Italy because, of course, Italy won last year. But it's an honour which is not always appreciated because it costs a lot of money to host Eurovision, millions. And some of the poorer European Union countries don't really want to win. They don't have to participate every year, but there's always a fear that if they win, they might have to host it. There have been cases in recent years of countries which have won, which have said, sorry, we really can't host Eurovision because we don't have enough money, and neighbouring countries have stepped in to help pay for it. It will be very interesting to see what happens next year, because Ukraine won this year, and we don't know, of course, if Ukraine will be able to host Eurovision next year. So it's a question which everyone will have to wait and see. If you like music, especially alternative or different kinds of music, Eurovision is definitely for you. But you should not assume that the Eurovision Song Contest, that the music there is going to accurately reflect the music or the customs of a particular country. It's just different styles. Some of them do have costumes related to the country that's singing. Some of them do sing in their native language, but mostly these days the acts kind of look the same, although there still is a lot of diversity within it. It's worth looking at, especially if you love music. Well, this has been an introduction to Eurovision. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to know more about Eurovision, you can find all the entries and probably the song contest itself on YouTube, although Eurovision does have its own website, and I know that they try to keep the entire contests on its own website, not on YouTube and these things. But certainly you'll find documentaries, histories, and all kinds of things about Eurovision on social media. I hope you've enjoyed this. Let's talk soon. Bye bye.